Welcome to our Raspberry Pi gaming benchmark video. Today we will be testing Retropie, Recalbox, Batocera, and Lakka. The software and hardware we will be using for our testing is stock OSs as of January 2024, configured by OtherMod to run on the PSPi version 6 with the OSD on-screen display disabled, a CM4 Lite, so the no eMMC version with Wi-Fi, 8 gigs of RAM, a SanDisk Extreme U3 A2 128 gigabyte micro SD card, and a PlayStation 4 DualShock controller. We will be testing these games in order of initial console release, so that order will be Sega Saturn, November 1994, Sony PlayStation 1, December 1994, Nintendo 64, September 1996, Sega Dreamcast, November 1998, Nintendo GameCube, September 2001, Nintendo DS, November 2004, and the Sony PSP, March 2005. All tests will be done with stock core settings. There are a couple caveats, however. With Batocera, I had to turn tweaks such as frame skip off as they are on by default. Any core that didn't have an FPS counter with it, I switched to the first available one that did have an FPS counter. And with Lakka, I picked the first core on the list as there is no core set by default. Pre-game FPS scores will be taken during the ROM's original boot up, one at the main screen and one at the load-in before actual gameplay takes place. Those three scores will be averaged. Then I will be taking 3 FPS scores captured during 5 minutes of gameplay. Once I have my pre-game average, my 3 in-game scores, and the game-breaking negatives added, all of those numbers will be averaged together to give a total average FPS per game. There will also be a maximum of 50 bonus points in 3 categories. Those categories are style, compatibility, and ease of use. Unfortunately, I won't be showing any videos of the style and ease of use of each operating system, as this video is already 20 minutes long and it's subjective anyways. I also won't have any audio from any of the games for 2 reasons. 1, I generally play without audio, and 2, it's just one more thing that maybe I can avoid a copyright claim here. And without any more rambling from me, let's get into it. First up, we will be testing Tomb Raider on the Sega Saturn. Retropie and Lakka are using the Yabasi core. This core on Retropie needs to be installed. Recalbox and Batocera are using the Yabasanshiro core. As you can see here, both Retropie and Lakka are giving us game-breaking bugs in the Yabasi core. They both are going to take a 40-point hit to their scores, giving them an average frame rate of 15.53 and 16.06 respectively. Whereas Recalbox and Batocera are both posting perfect scores across the board with a 60 frames per second average. Alright, I'm giving you a 10-second seizure warning as we've got problems in this next title, which is Panzer Dragoon on the Sega Saturn. As you can see, we have the exact opposite result with this one. Retropie and Lakka are both running fairly smooth, with no glitching, giving them an average FPS of 37.33 and 43.16 respectively. Recalbox and Batocera, on the other hand, actually have better frame rates, but also have game-breaking flashings, winning them each 40-point hit to their total scores, bringing them to an average FPS of 31.86 and 32.66 respectively. The total scores for both games put together gives Batocera the win with 92.26 points. Now on to PlayStation. This is the easiest platform we'll be testing, and it shows. Our first game up is Twisted Metal 1. Retropie, Recalbox, and Batocera are using the PCSX core, and Lakka is using Beetle PSX. All 4 operating systems have no problems with this game and all post perfect scores, 60 across the board. Now that result changes a little bit with Bloody Roar 2. Here again we see Retropie, Recalbox, and Batocera posting perfect scores, but Beetle PSX seems to struggle a little bit in game. It's really hurting Lakka's numbers, with an average FPS of 44.5. That gives Retropie, Recalbox, and Batocera the win for PlayStation with 120 points each. Next up is Nintendo 64, and all 4 operating systems are using Mupin 64 Plus. We start our tests with Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Retropie, Recalbox, and Lakka are using the Next variant, and Batocera is using the Glide 64 MK2 variant of Mupin 64 Plus. All 4 are definitely playable, with Retropie and Batocera posting scores of 59.33, followed by Lakka with a score of 49.41, and Recalbox with a score of 47.91. Now as we move on to Conker's Bad Fur Day, the gap between the best and the worst operating system gets a little bit bigger. Retropie and Batocera again posting nearly perfect scores of 59.16, followed by a Recalbox with 36.41, and Lakka at an even 36. Both tests together give Retropie and Batocera the win with 118.5 points. Now we move on to the powerhouse that is the Sega Dreamcast. All 4 OSs are using the Flycast core, but on Retropie this core needs to be installed. We start first with Resident Evil Code Veronica. In this game, we seem to be dealing with a capped frame rate of 30 frames per second on all but Recalbox, which also seems capped but at 25 frames per second. Next in Sega Rally, we don't seem to have FPS caps, but we also don't seem to get great emulation. Retropie never loads past the initial splash screen, dropping to our lowest average of 0.75, followed by a Recalbox with 16.83. Lakka and Batocera are totally playable with 28.5 and 31.25 frames per second respectively. Batocera takes another win here with a total score of 61.25. Now here's a fairly interesting one. Only Lakka has the ability to run the Dolphin core, so it's the only OS we were able to test. So we're going to do both games at the same time. Twilight Princess gets a score of 20.75. It feels slow sometimes, but actually seems playable. I'm sure later on in the game that would change. As for F-Zero GX, just no. I couldn't even get in-game, giving it a total score of 2.29. Lakka takes the GameCube with a score of 23.04 against nobody. Now let's look at the first of our two handhelds, the Nintendo DS. Our first game is GTA Chinatown Wars. Retropie uses the DS MUMI core, but needs to be installed. Batocera uses Melon DS. Lakka uses Melon DS for the first game and DS MUMI for the second game. I tried to use it for the first game, but it didn't detect my controller. Found out later that was actually my fault, not the emulator's fault. Unfortunately, Recalbox can't play DS games. There's no ability to install either of these cores. In GTA, both Retropie and Lakka feel slow, and you can see that in their FPS scores of 31.16 and 37.33 respectively. On the other hand, Batocera feels nice and smooth most of the time with a score of 48.33. Next up is one of my favorite DS games, Sola to Robo, Red the Hunter. Retropie really struggles here, posting an average FPS of 22.25. Lakka feels playable, but does struggle getting an average frame rate of 33.33. Batocera is the clear winner here. It's not always full speed, but it feels good with an average of 43.66. And Batocera takes another win, with a total score of 92 on the Nintendo DS. Last up, we have the PSP. Now, considering we're using the PSPi version 6, it would be a tragedy for games not to run well on this. Let's see how they do. On all 4 OSs, we're running PPSSPP. On Retropie, this core needs to be installed. Our first game up is Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. And right out of the gate, Recalbox falls on its face and actually fails to load into the game, freezing, giving it a total frame rate of 3 FPS. Next we have Lakka, and it's posting some of the best numbers for this game, but if you watch closely, it runs very slow and then suddenly speeds up, but the FPS counter never shows drops or spikes, earning it a 40-point hit to its score, landing at an average of 14.66. Batocera and Retropie, on the other hand, feel exactly as they should, posting scores of 28.33 and 29.41 respectively. And now the big one, God of War Chains of Olympus. This is one of the hardest games we're emulating in this video. And once again, Recalbox really doesn't want to run this game. It's basically a slideshow, running at an average frame rate of 11.75. Batocera and Lakka feel a little bit sluggish but playable, posting average frame rates of 38.66 and 40.08 respectively. Retropie, on the other hand, feels smoother, even though the frame rate in game is nearly identical to Batocera and Lakka, with an average of 42.5 frames per second. Making Retropie the big winner on the PSP with a total score of 71.91. So let's have a look at our bonus points, starting with style. All but Retropie feel nice and modern. Retropie is fine until you want to do anything that isn't already set up, like connecting to Wi-Fi or pairing Bluetooth. Then you're taken to a user interface that feels right out of the 90s. Now on to compatibility. All but Lakka lost points here for the lack of GameCube support. Retropie lost points because many of the cores we tested needed to be installed. Recalbox also couldn't run DS, so it lost points for that. Batocera did well here, but the fact that Lakka can play everything, even if it doesn't work well, gave it full points. Lastly, we have ease of use. Once again, Retropie loses points for how frustrating Wi-Fi and Bluetooth can be to deal with. Recalbox and Batocera are just fantastic to use. Everything kind of makes sense. And Lakka loses a few points here because the lack of default cores, making it easy to pick the wrong one. Batocera and Lakka tie on bonus points with a total of 130 points each. And here we go. I'm sure it's no surprise that Batocera takes the prize for the best gaming OS on the CM4 with the PSPi version 6, with a total of 681.01 points, beating out second place by nearly 100 points. So I hope this video has shown you the strengths and weaknesses of each OS. Gotta admit, I'm honestly surprised because I thought Lakka was going to win this, but it shows that at the end of the day, it all depends on what you're wanting to play. So I mean, really, unless your goal is to play GameCube games at okay frame rate depending on the game, or you're just looking for raw, untweaked performance in PSP, just install Batocera. But that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions or concerns about how the testing was done, leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. But as always, until next time, doesn't matter if you make or break, as long as you're having fun.